the city, and I had promised that I was going to come back and talk a little bit about Ku Papa Bell's family of origin. And I always like to preface this is not anything that I read in a book. Uh, this is not anything I got from newspapers online. This came from actually talking to James Ku Papa Bell. Spent a lot of time with him and his wife Clara Bell Thompson. I'll tell you a little bit about that. And I asked a lot of questions, and so the things you're hearing today are things that you might not find in other places, but hopefully by coming on and doing these lives and telling these stories, this history will be preserved long after we're all gone. And I want to just jump right into it. And I always like to preface that when I do my history, uh, this is a passion for me. This is not a job. I don't get paid for doing this history, never got paid for it. But I've always had a passion for doing this history. And so I hope you can appreciate that. And through the years, I've done some amazing things. God has really blessed me to do some amazing things and to meet some amazing people. And so tonight, I was going to tell you about one of those people. And I've been, my first live, since I went live probably about a week ago, it's been all about Ku Papa Bell. And I'm probably going to spotlight maybe another player coming up real soon, maybe this week. Got some interesting things I'd like to talk about. And just not sure who I want to talk about. But I thought maybe I would tell you once again, when in the 1980s, when I was writing my book, The Negro Baseball Leagues of Photographic History, James Ku Papa Bell was almost like a personal consultant for me. So um, we didn't do like formal interviews. I go down and interview him once. No, we didn't do that. He was like somebody I could call on the phone if I had one question. If I wanted one question about him, and he would elaborate on that question. If I called and wanted to know about some player or a specific player he played with or against, I could call him and he would talk about that player. And so I was able to be privy to a lot of really good information and information that dug we might say, below the surface of the typical questions that people would ask the Negro Leaguers. And consequently, I've got some information that people didn't get. And I'm really thankful for that because it's serving me well now. But one of the things, and I'm just using some of these notes, because I used to call him and I would write down just notes. And I was talking to him, first of all, about his family of origin. And of course, he had several brothers, and they all played baseball. And Fred was one of his brothers who actually played for the St. Louis Giants Stars. They started out as the Giants, and then they changed their name to the St. Louis Stars. But Fred actually played for them. And in that particular case, Fred, Ku Papa told me that his brother didn't lose a game in 1923. And but Fred was a pitcher, and then Ku Papa Bell came up as a pitcher too. And he said that one of his best pitches that he threw was called a knuckleball. But he didn't call it a knuckleball, he called it a snake ball. And he said a guy down in Mississippi by the name of Ed Hamilton. I taught him how to throw the pitch, and Ku Papa got so well at throwing that pitch that Hamilton was trying to catch him and split his finger. But he had a sister that would come sometime and play with the guys. Her name was Bessie Bell. And he said the sister was the only one who could catch his snake ball, or his knuckleball. And he said she died when she was in her 20s in 1926 from pneumonia. And the interesting thing, we talked about his sister a little bit. And I remember Ku Papa telling me that he had met so many brilliant people through the years. And he said that he was always amazed at some of these brilliant people that he met, and outstanding people in whatever their field was. They didn't live that long. And, I've lived long enough to understand what he was saying now. And so that's interesting. And that's what he had where he talked about his sister. She said she could run and throw and hit and catch just like a boy. He said on top of that, she played the organ at church. So that was his sister that he was pretty proud of. And so he talked about her also quite a bit. And then, of course, he had some more brothers. I'm going to tell you about his brothers. Okay, so we talked about Fred. Now Fred was the one that. And all of these, I have to tell you, these were Cool Papa's half brothers, so they had the same father. And but of course, he was born James Thomas Nichols. And when he came to St. Louis, that's where those brothers were. And so he started working with them and playing ball with them. So he changed his name and began going by his father's name, which was Bale. And that's where you get the Cool Papa Bale from. But anyway, he talked about his brother Fred playing with the St. Louis teams. He said he played about 3 months. And he left and went to Detroit to play with the Stars. And the team didn't pay correctly, and they owed him money. He had to go to court to try to get the money. And of course, he became disenchanted with the whole Negro League playing professional baseball. And so, long story short, Fred left baseball and went to work as a garbage man in the city of Detroit. That's a true story. So now Bill had 7 brothers and 1 sister. We talked about the sister, that was Bessie, right? But he had a brother named Robert Bale who played in the City League for the Compton Hill team there, Compton Hill Cubs. He had Samuel Bale. He had Louis Q. Bale. And of course he had Otis. Now Otis tried out for the St. Louis team. And he told me that Otis came out and he saw Willie Wells play. And he said he threw his glove down and just went home and retired after that. He said he couldn't be Willie Wells. And so he said he didn't even try. And that was his brother Otis. So, and then those are the ones that played baseball. He had a few of them that didn't play baseball as well. And of course, let's see, James Cool Papa Bale. Another thing, and I want to know how much education you had. And in his particular case, he mentioned that down in Starksville, he went to the Ebenezer School, and that was the all African American school. And his sister went there, and once again, that's where he started playing baseball, and his sister started playing catch and that kind of thing. Let's see, what else do I want to see? These little notes. These are great notes when you think about it. We're talking about here, he met Clara Belle Thompson. He met her in East St. Louis, Illinois. And they got married on September the 8th, 1928. And they were married for over close to 60 years. And when I went down and met them, they were well over 50 years in marriage. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And I learned a lot from her, too, because, when you're with someone his entire baseball career, you know all the people as well. And she knew the wife. She had great stories. And asked Cool Papa, I said, was she helpful to your career? And he said, if it wasn't for my wife, he said, I wouldn't ever have gotten into the Hall of Fame. So he thought a lot of his wife and all that she did to enhance his career. Of course, his famous nickname, James Cool Papa Bale. And he told me that his manager, Bill Gatewood, gave him that nickname. So Bill Gatewood. Now Bill Gatewood, he actually died in not too far from where I am. He lived in Moberly, Missouri, and of course he died in Columbia. Of course, if you go down I-70 here, coming from Kansas City on your way to St. Louis, that's about the midway point. And so typically, if someone got sick in Moberly, they would end up going to Columbia, that's where the big hospital was. And so that's the reason why Bill Gatewood passed away in Columbia, even though he lived in Moberly. The same can be said for a guy named Homer Bartlett, who played for the 1924 Monarchs. He lived in Centralia, Missouri. And Centralia is right off of that 70 corridor as you're heading towards St. Louis, but it's close to Columbia. So when he passed away, he was actually in Columbia as well, but he lived in Centralia. Been to both these places and talked to a lot of people. And so anyway, and of course, James and Claire Bell got married in East St. Louis, Illinois, in case anyone's ever looking for that. He also told me, let's see, his brother Fred was a left-handed thrower. And he said he could throw about as hard as Satchel Paige. And that's saying quite a bit. And he also mentioned that A lot of the players uh, didn't like Bill Gatewood because he had come from Detroit and they didn't want to play for him. They didn't really want to play for him. They wanted one of the St. Louis guys who had been there a long time to be the manager. So uh, 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 Bill Gatewood actually won his exit. So these are just a few of the stories, you know. And I talked a lot about Cool Papa Bill. One thing I would say, when he passed away, um, I wrote this long story. You can see some of it right here. Cool Papa Bill, and it's a story that says a legend in his own time. And this is a story I wrote. It was a full-page story in the St. Louis American, and I was honored to do that. And a lot of these little details that people don't often discuss are in that article. And so if you ever get a chance to get that article, it was in the St. Louis American. That's an African American newspaper out of St. Louis, and it has a wonderful story of Cool Papa and his life. And so, been honored to do stories like that on many people. I did one on Newt Allen when he passed away. Maybe that's who I'll talk about next. So I don't know, but anyway, I just want to say I hope you've enjoyed these little segments, and I hope you've learned a little bit. And once again, I have to tell people that these are not stories that I read about in books. And so what I'm bringing to you is a first person from that person. And so I hope to bring more of these. And so if you like these kind of stories, you like this kind of history, this first person kind of narrative, let's keep it talking. I will have to tell you, I interviewed over 500 people. So I can go nonstop on these kind of stories. I'm just not sure I'm going to do next. But if you stay tuned, you'll see. So I just want to thank everybody who's in here tonight. I see somebody by the name, what's that, Corina Munoz, listening. So I want to say hello, and thank you for chiming in. I don't know if I see anyone else here. I see, let's look at Tessa Peters said hello. I appreciate that. So anyway, feel free to share this, and we'll keep it going. And once again, I'm Phil Dixon, an African-American baseball historian, but believe me, I'm a baseball historian who loves to write about the Negro Leagues, but I like baseball, so I'll write about the major leagues, as I had in my book, The Dizzy and Daffy Dean Barnstorming Tour, Race, Media, and America's National Pastime. So just want to thank you, and I'm going to put up my little sign here so you can see where we're getting ready to go with this conversation, and that about does it for tonight. So all right then, so thank you guys, and you have a nice day.